Listeners be advised. The Holiloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, y'all, I brought back the liquor. We're going to be talking about a little bit of drunk sex as well as one night stands. And to join me in this conversation, I have Wesley back onto the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So, well, before we get into this conversation, do you mind reminding people who you are, what you do, the things that you're working on, all your greatness?
Sure. My name is Wesley Toma. I am a certified relationship and intimacy coach. I focus on the LGBTQIA plus and kink communities. I'm also starting, when this comes out, I'll have already started a podcast with another guest, Lori Sweetman, and we will be. It's called These Queer Stories, where we'll be talking about being queer, what it's like the queer community. Helping people who are part of the community to be more true and authentic self, their true and authentic self. And if you want to learn more about me, you can always go to my website, which is wesleytoma.com.
Perfect. And I'll make sure I have that info in the show notes for everybody. So, because we will be discussing drunk sex or just sex while intoxicated, I always have this disclaimer for everybody to remind everyone that whenever you are indulging in any kind of intoxicant, liquor, or let's say marijuana, whatever the case is, that it does vitiate consent, which also means cancel out your consent, which means that that is considered sexual assault. Now, this does not negate those individuals who do prefer that, because personal autonomy is a thing. There are individuals who do enjoy having sex while intoxicated. All I ask, if that's you and you're the type of person who does enjoy that thing, that you continue to do that with someone that you trust. And with that being said, let's talk about one night stands and drunk sex. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that came up in our conversation about these topics, one is that you, for one, personally do not participate in drunk sex.
No.
But another thing that we discussed was how there are lessons that you can learn from one night stands. What are some of those lessons that people may learn?
Well, I think a lot of the lessons come into with the one night stands is you kind of learn who you are as a sexual partner, because when you're having one night stands, when you're having random hookups, you're not sleeping with the same person. They're all different people, and every body is different. Every person is different. Everyone experiences pleasure differently. So when you're having, hookups, one night stands, whatever, it's giving you a chance to experience multiple bodies and multiple ways of delivering pleasure to different people. And it kind of helps you to learn, not how to be the perfect lover, because, there's no such thing as a perfect lover, but it teaches you how to be better and how to be more responsive, communicative, and observant of a lover. Because I think if you're not the best lover is someone who can observe what's happening and understand what's happening and adjust to that, up to those observations.
Hmm. So, what advice would you have for somebody who does not know how to communicate their wants and needs to someone during some type of casual hookup? Because I often hear of the stories of this is specifically women who've I heard this story from, but I've experienced it personally, as well as I know some men who've experienced this too, where they do not know how to say, okay, this is making me feel uncomfortable, or this is not as pleasurable as you think it's feeling for me. Like, what advice would you have for somebody who's in that position with someone that they just met at the bar or what have you, and now they're in this phase of a hookup?
Uh, Taking the drunk sex out of it and just focusing on one night stands. I think, again, because I am a kinkster, I think you need to talk to your partner beforehand. I get meeting someone at a bar and being hot and heavy and just wanting to get it on as quickly as possible, but I still think even with that, have a quick conversation. Like, it doesn't have to be like, I'm not talking about having a drawn out negotiation.
Mhm.
Just like, I like this, this is off the table. I want to do this. This is how it is. Let's go. Is that cool? Great. Let's go. A negotiation doesn't have to be a contract. It can be a 5-second conversation where you just talk about your likes, dislikes, and your hard limits, and that's it. And one thing that I always talk about when it comes to negotiation, again, as a kinkster, because it's very important to us. You always never renegotiate during the act. And when I say that, what I mean is never negotiate up. You can negotiate down, but don't negotiate up. So, don't say, hey, let's do more, but you should always feel comfortable say, I want to do less.
Mm.
Because when you're in the moment, we all know the brain chemistry changes, your body changes, your feelings and emotions change, even your physical reactions change when you're in the height of sexual intimacy. So you may not be able to make those informed decisions at that moment because your body's basically lying to you, which is why they say don't negotiate up, negotiate down. But I think honestly, ultimately the one thing I would say for anybody who's in that situation is just, if you don't know what your limits are, then you need to be okay, and you need to let them know that you may stop them even though you didn't negotiate it, and
Mm.
that needs to be okay with everybody.
Yes, that's a good message. Like I hope for a day where people no longer have to be afraid to say no. Because even when it comes to a casual hookup, because sometimes people are doing it because of the looks, they're not thinking that this person that they're going home with may be an axe murderer, or they're not thinking that this person is an abuser. They're not thinking any of these things because it's
Mhm.
like, hey, we're in this for sex, we're in this to enjoy ourselves, and hopefully this person's trying to enjoy themselves just as much without wanting to harm me. And I think that those people who are engaging in casual sex, we all need to bring ourselves to a point, regardless of if you are the person receiving the pleasure or the person giving the pleasure, wherever you fall on that spectrum, to be receptive of no, also be receptive of on having these check-ins with the people that you're hooking up with, and also
Yes.
being open to allowing them to say, oh, wait, this is making me feel uncomfortable. Let's try this different position, or let's try something that is not this, but related to that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're wanting to go all in and fuck me, but I'm not warmed up yet. Do you mind warming me up some by,
Yeah.
touching on my nipples, rubbing
Yeah.
on my sides, all of these things. But I feel as though we're not at that point as a society where people feel open and free to have that conversation. But I also want people to engage in that more, because the only way that we can bring ourselves to that point is to start doing it a lot more within our casual hookups, our conversations with our friends, or those people that we're intimate with, be it multiple partners or just our own singular partner. And maybe they share that with their friends, like, oh, this actually happened. And I thought it was going to ruin the sex, but it actually made the sex better.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things.
Yeah, I am a very communicative lover. I'm always talking. I'm always, and I'm also I love the sound of my partner's voice when intimate. It turns me on, listening to my partner enjoy themselves, listening to them moan, listening to them talk about. So, and like one of the things that I do that, a lot of people do it, obviously, but they do it just to be dirty is the, you like that? How's that feel? Oh yeah, baby. How's that make you? How you enjoying that? Yeah. You want more? That stuff, not only is it sexy and kind of turns you on in the moment, it's also very informative because, if you're doing something and they like it, they're going to tell you, yeah, that's great. Keep doing it more. And you're okay. So, and it's like, and that's part of the, like I was saying, the observation side of things is that's part of observation is having those check-ins and talking to people and saying, hey, how's this going for you? And, and if they say, yeah, it's all right, don't be offended. Because not like everybody is different. Like I said earlier, everybody feels pleasure differently, and what you may be used to. Honestly, I know how to pleasure I can get myself off in like 3-4 minutes, easy. Because I know my own body. I know exactly how to do it. But I know that the way I like it isn't necessarily the way anybody else would. So I know what I do is not something I is guaranteed to work on everybody.
Like I do enjoy when a sexual partner does check in, but I also feel awkward whenever someone tries, like for me, I can tell a genuine check-in versus, oh, I'm trying to make this like a porn scene. And whenever it gets to that point where they're trying to make it into a porn scene, I'm just like, okay, I'm a little bit uncomfortable now. Like whenever someone like asks me, oh, do I like that? And sometimes I'm just like, I want to say like, oh, it's okay. I'm enjoying it so far. Like if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the honest answer. But some of those questions, I'm just like, let's not do that. Like if someone asks me, oh, whose ass is this? Or whose dick is this? Whose pussy is this? Whoever, like whatever you're trying to do, for me, I cannot say, oh, it's yours. I cannot, because I have ownership over my body. And because I have ownership of my body, and me sharing my body with you does not mean you own this body. So it's like whenever I'm asked questions like that, those tend to take me out of the scene versus keeping me fully into it. And I have communicated that with some of my sex partners. Some don't listen. And then I'm just like, are you trying to make this pleasurable or not? What are we doing here? But I also say that from a place of privilege too, because the people that I engage with, they already know that you're not going to be here if I don't want you here. Like to be in my presence is the privilege that I'm providing for you. It's a self-confidence thing. Some might say I have a huge ass ego. I'm okay with that. But like
everybody should look at their relationships that way, to be honest. Because it is a pleasure to be with people.
Exactly. It's like like me sharing myself with you is me allowing you into a very special and spiritual place. Like I have that sense of myself that this is a temple, and what I provide and what I allow people to gaze upon is, a part of that. It extends over to news as well, people. It extends over to news. Be selective about who you share your news with. That's all I'm saying.
But this now also goes back to something that I'm very, very big on. And like I was saying, is the negotiation. Talk about it. One of the things that people, it's kind of seen as like a ha-ha thing for most of the world, but everyone talks about, in kink, we have our safe words, and they're important because, especially in kink, because in kink, the safe word is kink can be dangerous. Let's be real. Yes. Like you could be doing some very dangerous things for pleasure.
The Holiloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Holiloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Holiloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
Be dangerous. Let's be real.
Yes.
Like you could be doing some very dangerous things for pleasure. That's kind of the point of it to a lot of people. So sometimes you need a safe word to know when to stop. But I know people who, kinksters who don't like the check-ins. They don't want, they like you, it pulls them out of the scene. So they negotiate differently. They say, hey, don't check in verbally, but, grab my arm and give me a squeeze. Give my arm a squeeze. And if you squeeze my arm, if I squeeze back, that means everything's good. If I don't, that means something's wrong, because people think, screaming, cookie in the middle of sex may be weird. One of the things that I highly recommend instead of the kink word, and I think it's better than not kink word, the safe word, and I think it's better than the safe word, is the red, yellow, green.
Yes.
Because it adds dimensions to it. For anyone who may not know what it is, obviously it's like a street sign. If someone says red, you stop. Everything is over. The scene is over. Sex is over. You're done. No, the end. The night is done. But in a green, obviously everything's perfectly fine. Keep going as it is. But yellow, and this is something that the safe word really doesn't give you. Yellow allows you to pause a moment and take a minute to have a conversation. Like if you like something, but it's not quite feeling right, or it's overwhelming, you call yellow. And that way that your partner can say, okay, what's going on? How are you feeling? Okay, I can adjust. Let me not do that anymore. Let me do this instead. And then, again, always remember though, if you call yellow, you have to call green to continue. Nobody can call green but the person who called yellow. And your partner should keep it yellow until you call green. And that is, like I said, it's a time to kind of talk about it, go over it. And then when you're ready on your time, call green again and then continue on. Whereas with a safe word, it's usually like, once the safe word is called, you're done.
Yeah. That's a good, I did not think about that. Like, the difference between like the use of the safe word and then the color spectrum. That does give a lot more of a leeway. Like I personally prefer the colors too. Most definitely when it comes to like any kind of group play. But like I know like with my ex, we had our safe word. I forgot what it was. I just thought of the show safe word. Anyways, we had our own safe word and whatnot. But I also remember one of the most passionate and powerful sexual experience I had with him was actually when we incorporated a leash. And if I pulled the leash tighter, that changed his actions. And if I loosen it up, that changed it as well. And just that nonverbal communication just kept us inside of that sexual experience a lot longer, and it prolonged the pleasure as well. And even after, everybody came or what have you, we talked about it. And I was like, did you notice that happen? It's like, no, I didn't even pay any attention. But I was like, yeah, that actually happened. We were like in sync without even knowing this was going on. But like, yeah, just those different ways that you can communicate your likes and needs to people, verbally and non-verbally, is really important. And I do hope that we can get to a point in our society that we can do those on like a one-nighter. Just be like, hey, here's my just come with the rap sheet. Here's all my reds. This is my greens. But look, if you get me to a little bit of yellow, we can figure out how that's going to go. And there we go. Like, I came here for the sex, and you was looking good across the bar, and I decided to come up and look. Here we are. What we doing?
There is this thing, you can find it online. If you look it up, it's I think it's called the BDSM negotiation checklist. I think. I think if you Google that, you'll find it. I wouldn't recommend this for everybody because it's like a 4-page thing. It's a 4-page list of all different kinks, and you put yes, no, maybe, depends, we need to talk about it, something like that. And again, for Kinksters, it's great because it covers a lot of stuff, and you just can say, you can hand it to someone, say, here's my list, and they can look it over and say, okay, fine, we can work with this. And obviously you don't need to pull out a 4-page list for a one night stand, but it's one thing I've actually suggested to people is write down your likes, your dislikes, and your heart stops. Even if you never show them to anybody, write them down, because then them, because you cannot relay your likes and dislikes if you don't understand them yourself.
Exactly.
So take the time, write them down, and then if you have them written down, it's easier for you to then look at that list and say, these are things I like, these are things I don't like. And so when you're in the situation, it's easier for you to remember, this is, here's the checklist, boom, 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 let's go.
Exactly. Like, even when I think about the hookups that I engage in, because I make an effort to do this, and I ask people what are they into sexually, and they respond however they respond, and then they ask me about myself. I tell them straight up, like, this is what I'm into in terms of sexual role, what I enjoy doing during sex, because look, whatever sexual role I have, the way I express my sex is often against that role. So, which is a shock to some people, because some are shocked to figure out that I'm a very, like, a dom person. Well, I'm actually a switch, but look, it's a little bit more of a dom than switch half the time. But like, letting them know, like, look, I enjoy nipple play. I enjoy toe sucking. I have mine sucked. I enjoy, like, people, like, massages. I enjoy frottage. I enjoy a little bit of spanking. I enjoy these things. And then I also let them know, just in case of where their mind might be, that I'm also into kinks, but all of that depends on the chemistry that I have with that person.
Right.
So that lets them know, oh, if I do decide to prolong things with this person, we might actually engage in those kinks if I'm comfortable with those things. Now, when it comes to people I'm interested in, like, dating, and we have these conversations about sex, the first thing I do is tell them, hey, this BDSM test, I need you to take that. And then once you take that, send me those results, and we could talk about what's going on here. And we could talk about what I like and what you like and how these things can combine.
Yeah.
Like, this is like my way of normalizing these kind of conversations for other people, as well as giving them those tools so they can utilize those in the conversations that they have with people that they meet that's not me.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, it's funny because I just took that BDSM test like a couple days ago, because I took it many years ago, and it's been a while. So I'm like, oh, let me see. And I totally disagree, because it said I was like 100% rope bunny, and I hate rope. It's just not a thing that I've ever been interested in.
Question.
Yeah.
Is it that so would you be tied up, or would you tie someone else up?
Nothing about rope interests me.
So how did you get that?
I don't know.
Something
I put there told them is apparently I'm a rope bunny. But
was rigor up there?
That was an option. Yeah. And that was way down on the bottom of the list.
What?
Yeah. So, but like, I would suggest, and if I remember, I'll send that checklist I was telling you. I think it's better than that thing. Cause that's kind of silly, and it kind of it serves its purpose, but it's not perfect. But like, and kind of going with what you're saying, it's like, I'm very similar. Like, I can be very subby. But I like playing on both sides of the slash. But when I dom, I'm a very service dom, very soft dom. I'm not looking to, hurt you and, feel that. I don't want to feel that aggressiveness that a lot of doms want to feel, and sometimes when I'm with a sub, that's what they want too. And I can't service that. I'm gonna ask you what you want me to do. I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna explore your limits. I'm gonna hurt you, but I'm gonna do it in a way that I'm not gonna be aggressive. I'm soft. I'm communicative. So yeah, I think it's important. It's important to just understand where you are and who you are, whether it's a one night stand or a scheduled kink scene, or another date night with your spouse. You have to understand yourself, and you have to understand who you are and where you are.
Yes. Whew, now I'm thinking about me as a dom, and I know like I'm a sensual person, and I love sensory play, sensual play. I love the engagement that brings. Like, pleasure torture is my thing. Oh my god. It's like,
Preaching
oh
to the
my god.
choir.
Like, delayed gratification is like okay. Anyways, one of the things that we were talking about in the intake meeting is how casual hookups, though they can have their negative aspects, casual hookups are actually helping with normalizing sex.
Yes.
So what about that brought you to that statement?
So if you look at our society in general, and I'm saying society isn't globally, because I think this is something that we deal with on a global level. It's not just America; it's everywhere. We're very uptight when it comes to talking about sex. We have sex ed at school, but it's very much just like, practice safe sex. This is the science behind it. Let's move on. Nobody actually talks about the joy of sex. Nobody actually wants to talk about the joy of sex. Like, let's even take the kink out of it. Like, growing up, and we would never discuss sex within my family, because it's just not what you do in polite society, as they say. Even if it's between two consenting adults or two married adults, you don't talk about it. And I think when it comes to, like, for one night stands, it's helping normalize it in casual hookups, because it's teaching you, it's teaching you that sex is okay. There is nothing wrong with it. It's not something that you have to do with the lights off and the shutters closed, under the pillow, under the blankets, missionary only, and then you don't have to beg for Jesus' forgiveness after the fact. You can have fun with it, and it teaches you to have fun with it, but it also teaches you to communicate those pleasures with people. And I think this next statement is very much biased towards males, because obviously males have a little bit more freedom when it comes to their sexual exploration. But when you're having casual sex, it gives you a chance to, I don't want to say not to brag, but you probably talk about it with your friends. You're going to talk about, people you've been with, people you're hooking up with, to your friends, and it creates communication, and it creates conversation, and that's important. And it helps to make the thought of sex a more comfortable thing.
I agree with you, but I also disagree.
Okay.
The only
Good.
thing I disagree with is the males having, like, the freedom to talk about sex. Like, it only depends on what type of sex men have
True.
that freedom.
True.
And of course that's me on my own, that's a subjective lens of that, but because I think about, like, with women, though they do not have the freedom to express themselves sexually, but they have the freedom to be as freaky as they want to be, as long as they're married to the person, or they're not out here being a whore, let's say.
Right.
As long as they're not doing that. Oh, go ahead. Let that freak flag fly. You can have sex with other women. You're good. We okay with that. And of course, there's a subsect of men who's just against lesbian, but they're against all things sexual anyway. So fuck them. But then with men is like, okay, if you're fucking pussy, we're okay. We can have this conversation. As long as you're fucking them and you're doing the things that's within the norm, because I think about vanilla very often, what is considered vanilla in heterosexual spaces all the time. And I think eating ass is just now got to the point that is normalized in heterosexual relationships. So great. Well, eating the female's ass, having the female eat the man's ass is a different kind of conversation. I guess that's going to be the next unlocked feature of heterosexuality.
That's the next level up.
Next level up. I'm here for it. I can't wait till that happens.
Yeah.
But I don't see any guy walking up to his homeboys and just like, oh yeah, my girl ate my ass last night, fam. Like, what's up? Like,
Oh yeah.
that moment's like,
Yeah.
are you gay? The fuck you mean?
Oh yeah. No, you're right. And even more so, like I could never in I'd say most conversations, I could never talk openly about my kinks. Because no matter gay, straight, whatever, man, woman, being a kinkster is still considered very, very, very faux pas in our society. So yeah. I mean, yeah, I did say men have more freedom, which is I think they do have more freedom. But again, you're right. It is within certain frameworks. But like I could like my parents. I'm married. My parents know I'm married. They know we have sex. I mean, it's. We don't have to talk about it for them to know that we have sex. But if they knew some of the things that we like to do,
oh, their mind would just go all the way.
Yeah. They'd be giving a come back to Jesus speech. Because it's just not accepted.
And it's crazy because I think about my family because they're I won't say they're super conservative, or I won't say religious, but non-conservative. They're all about the Bible and what's a sin is a sin and all this other stuff. But over the years, they've gotten a little bit better. And I know some of that is because of how I am on social media, and all of them see my posts. And because I talk about sex all the time, they were like, okay, when are you going to stop talking about sex? You don't need to talk about sex as much. But then I accidentally put them in a double bind when I published my book. And my book is called The Essential Guide on How to Be a Hoe, right? So because of that title, and they want to shout me out and show love and show support for the fact that I wrote this book, now they have to address the fact that, oh, my nephew or my usually nephew or my son wrote this book about hoeing. So we have to talk about sex. And now we cannot give him his props without acknowledging that this is about sex. So I guess
isn't that amazing? Isn't that a great thing to force sex positivity on people? I love that. I love it.
Even when I visited for my aunt's funeral, and we were talking to other family members, and one of my aunts on my mother's side, because this was a aunt on my dad's side, she was there, and she was talking about it. It's like, oh, and this is the one who wrote that book, and we were talking about that, and now we're in the living room having a whole conversation about sex, and the elder in the room, she's put in her input about how, oh yeah, back in our days we was doing all this kind of stuff, and this is how you keep a man and all this other shit. And I'm like, look at that. We're having open conversations about sex in this house. Ain't God good?
And if you look at honestly, if you look at how things were back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, being it wasn't it was, I'm not saying it was as open as it is now, because I think, at least for the LGBT community, this is probably the best it's ever been for most of us. But, you look back at the 70s compared to say the 80s, and the 70s were way more open, way more accepting and they kind of took a backslide for a little bit there, which is so weird. But and again, of course, now because we had a terrible president, we took another backslide, but that's for another episode.
Right. Oh my God, yes. This is my personal belief. Whoever's against it, feel free, because I understand, because I'm about to say something completely crazy. All right, so my personal belief is that most people who are extremely against sexual expression these days were the biggest hoes back in the 60s and 70s. And then, with the AIDS crisis and the fear that's within that, they're just like, oh, I have to demonize everything related to that. Even though 3 weeks ago I was sucking some dick, I cannot be associated with that. So it's F the gay stuff. We don't do that. Not in this household. None of that. And then here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the Republican Party now.
Yeah. I'd say at least 90% of them, yeah.
So it's okay if you was sucking dick. It's okay if you was eating pussy. It is what it is. We love you regardless. Let it go. And another thing that I recently learned is that the strict behavior against sexual expression, the way that we see it today, did not change until after Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so what was it like before then? Because I know that they had brothels. Of course, since men were the ones that had all the rights at the time, of course, we're going here to have sex with these women. We're going here to have sex with the men. We're going to have sex with the people who are somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, now everything gets fucked up. Women have rights. How dare they? Now you're saying the gay people have to have rights?
Oh. Yeah, how dare we?
Right. How dare we?
But and it's funny though, because like, you know, my family knows that I'm a relationship coach. I don't add that part about that I specialize in the kink community, because those are questions I don't want to have them ask. You know, they know I'm gay. They know I'm queer, and they know I service a lot of the queer community as well. But because they don't want to have that conversation, I don't want to have that conversation with them, to be honest. We don't have that conversation, but it's because there's that stigma behind kinksters, you know, that it's not okay to be a kinkster. That's not normal. That's weird. That's odd. That's, you know, the furries and the people who molest little children are kinksters, and which is, you know, that's bullshit, first of all. And, you know, it's not denying anything about, there's nothing wrong with being a furry, but, you know, I mean, like, but this is what they think is like this negativity, you know. And so but what's funny is, you know, whenever I talk about what I do outside of my family, because I do like to talk about what I do. I love doing this. When I mention to someone who's very vanilla that I focus, you know, I'm part of the kink community and I focus on the kink community, the first question almost always, oh, what are your kinks? Really? They're so fascinated by it. Yeah, that's what they want. I've gone to kink events. I have friends that I've known in the kink community for almost a decade. I could not tell you what their kinks are because it's never discussed, because kinksters don't talk about it with each other, you know, unless we're going to be sexually active with each other and we're going to explore those kinks. We almost never talk about it. I mean, we may see each other in like a class here or there, say, oh, you're in this rope class, you're in this rope class. Okay, obviously you both like rope, you know, as an example. But I have friends that I don't know anything about their kinks, and that's fine, you know. But anytime I meet a quote unquote non-kinkster, which also I don't necessarily think that's the thing. I think everyone is kind of a kinkster in a way. They always, one of the first questions is, what are your kinks?
That is very interesting. And when you made that statement that you don't even know what your friends' kinks are, I thought about me. Like, I really don't know what my friends' kinks are, what they're other than the ones who've came onto the podcast and we've shared like our BSM results and we talked about kinks because of the kink episode. I'm not really having that conversation on a regular basis because I don't necessarily care. Not that, you know, I don't care about them or whatever, but like I live by the rule, if I'm not going to be worried about what's going on in your bedroom. If the only time I will worry about it is if I'm going to be in your bedroom. If I have plans to be in your bedroom, I'm asking these questions. But if I don't care what you're doing. Like, you could slap somebody 15 times and then suck their dick. Congratulations. I hope they came, and I hope you came too. We're not going to go into deep conversations about it. So yeah, that.
One thing I've learned, which I found so fascinating over the years, because I've gone to kink conventions. I've gone to munches, which are when a bunch of kinksters in your local area just get together for like dinner and kind of hang out. We don't talk about kink almost never. I mean, if we're at a convention, obviously, because it's the focus, there's a little bit more kink talk there. But when you're in the social settings of those, we don't talk about kink. We talk about our pets. We talk about Star Trek. And we talk about D&D. But never kink. So like, and that's another one of those misconceptions that the world has. It's like, oh, they're kinksters. That must be all they talk about. They're such depraved human beings. That's all they matter. It's like, no, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to look at your cat pictures for 20 minutes because you have an adorable fucking cat. And I'd rather learn more about your cat than your kink.
Yeah, because I like it's weird because I know I'm not going to go to a sex conference with the intentions of I'm going to be having sex with somebody.
No.
However, I can go to an education conference and just like, you know what? I want to catch at least two bodies while I'm there, either within the local community or with somebody that's at that conference.
Yep.
That is wow. That's hilarious. I never thought about that.
Because it is a different level of sexual freedom. Going back to what we were talking about before, is normal. It's normalized. It's more normalized at the sex convention. So it doesn't feel as exciting, as dirty as it does if you go to like the teacher conference, where it feels a little bit more exciting, a little bit more dirty, a little bit more naughty. Because it's a little bit more uptight there, and it's not as normalized.
So now should we normalize sex? Oh my God, I'm joking. We should still normalize sex.
Yes. I don't care how normalized sex is. You can still be hot for teacher.
Oh yeah. So one of the things that we did discuss is how there's fear mongering aspect to casual sex. You have those conversations of the online hookup gone wrong, which is important to mention, but we blast that like, oh, all you're going to find if you do online dating is someone who's trying to murder you. It's going to be another Jeffrey Dahmer out there. That's what's going on these apps, rather than mentioning the fact that this was one person who did this behavior, be it rob somebody, murdered somebody, kidnap somebody, abuse somebody, whatever the case may be. This is one person. However, there are thousands and millions of people on these dating apps. Yet we're using this one case to generalize to everybody.
And that has a lot to do with politics, to be honest. That's because they're the ones that are usually doing the fear mongering, and it's because they're trying to make a point. Like to talk about the dating apps as an example, I met my husband on a dating app. I had to go through a lot of jerks to get to him. Yes. And I had to go through a lot of guys that weren't jerks, but just didn't work out. Yes. But I found him on a dating app. We've been together now 12 years. We've been married for 10, So, I mean, they're not all crazy psychopaths on there. In fact, dating apps wouldn't be so popular if that's all that there was, because people would stop using them. Yes, you have stories of like the people that used to use Craigslist as example to hurt people, but there was like one, maybe two people that did that, and then but it got him such a bad name that they ended up shutting that section of Craigslist down. It's the rotten apple, whatever, it gets the worm. And so it's like we need to stop the fear mongering, because it doesn't help. It doesn't. The only thing it does is make you stand out to your incumbents. It doesn't serve the community at all. It's just a way to rack up votes and keep people quote unquote in check.
And see, now I'm thinking about because there's that Sesta Fossa thing and how that negatively impacts so many people, especially sex workers and social media platforms. However, regardless of it's something that is used to demonize certain platforms and not all platforms. For example, I had an incident with MailChimp where I just had my OnlyFans in there. My OnlyFans has absolutely no porn on there. Like, there's no dicks. You might see some titties because look, it's Free Titties Fridays, Free Titty Tuesdays. Let the titties out, okay?
Do it.
Let them out. Let them hang.
Yeah.
But you might see that on there. But they were like, oh, because you have this link to OnlyFans, we cannot, push your email list out there. And then I'm like, okay, why is it OnlyFans the thing that you're like demonizing me for. However, I have my night flirt account associated with this that's going to be sent out on this email account, and that's something that actually caters towards. Yeah, you might not see news on there, but that's a sex work related site. And then I also have my Twitter on there, which has a lot more porn on it than any of those things that I'm a part of. Because look,
Mm-hmm.
most people's OnlyFans account is linked to their Twitter account, which means the porn that they have on there is coming up on their Twitter account. So why is it that I can include Twitter on here? Like, let's be real. You're doing this because you all feel as though, oh, we need to isolate anything that's related to sex. No,
Mm-hmm.
why not just embrace that? And it also reminded me of Patreon, because I
Mm-hmm.
had this little dilemma. I was like, do I want to continue to use this or not? I ended up making the decision to stay on it. But one of the things that I read this article about how they hosted sites, well, individual accounts that actually had child pornography on it. Now, I don't know if they took down those accounts or what have you, but the argument was that anybody on Patreon should like cancel their accounts with them. They should shut down the site and what have you. But I'm just like, this is a minority amount of people who are doing this. So go after those people specifically. That's what we have the FBI for, so that they can do this investigation to get these people who are actually abusing children and putting them online. And then the thought came up, what about these individuals, most of the time parents, who allow their children to be in their TikTok content because they know the children will actually get more reviews. So now, are we not going to utilize the same things to say that they're actually pimping out their children for views?
Mm-hmm.
Like, these dynamics, these things, these conversations are not really happening the way that they need to happen. Because me personally, as long as your child knows what's going on, that they're actively participating in these things, and you're reviewing who's being exposed to your child's image, okay, put them on TikTok, enjoy that.
Yeah.
But to use them to be your source of income, how's that any different than someone exploiting a child on Patreon?
Right.
I
I
get the
mean,
sexual component because still wrong,
yeah.
but
But and how is that really any different than you having an OnlyFans? Trying to make a little money off of you.
mhm.
It goes back to the fear mongering. It's like, not all sex workers are bad.
Mm,
Yes, there are some bad sex workers. There's some bad, insert every profession here.
yes.
That doesn't mean you have to shun and shut down the entire system because of one or two bad apples. I have many friends that are sex workers. I have friends that have OnlyFans.
Mhm.
And OnlyFans recently, when they went to that whole, we're not going to accept sex stuff anymore for like, a minute. I have friends that were highly effective from that. I have friends that have had Tumblr accounts that got shut down when Tumblr went sex free. Yeah, right.
Mm.
It
Oh
was
my
a
God.
sad. I mourned that
I
day. Can I
mourn
tell you?
too. That was so hurtful.
I
Mm.
wore black all day. But yeah, so I mean, I have friends that were affected by that. They're not doing anything wrong. They're adults. They're grown adults. They're not putting anybody in harm. They're not putting themselves in harm, or at least not harm that they're not consenting towards. They're doing, and the people watching them, they're as far as they're aware, are adults, and that's on the platform to make sure that they are. So what's wrong with this? If it
Exactly.
just because it happens to be someone, one of my friends hula hooping naked, or another friend who's fucking herself with a dildo, or
Oh,
two
that's
guys that are just
talented.
having, hey, she's good,
Wait, okay, I just need to process
not with
that.
the hula hoop,
Hula
not with the hula
hooping
hoop,
with the
separate,
okay,
no,
that's the
separate
thing.
too.
I was like, oh my God, that is beautiful. Like, girl, like our guy, our person,
Yeah.
do you? That is some shit right there. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that
That's
would be
talent.
pretty talented. That would be pretty talented. No, it's two separate people. But they're not hurting anybody. They're enjoying. They're just trying to make money the way they know how to make money. And honestly, what's the difference between what? And honestly, like, what is the difference between a sex worker on OnlyFans and a movie star.
Absolutely not. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I want to see the OnlyFans, the movie star. No, half of them, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I guess you're attractive.
Yeah.
You cannot act, but okay.
But they're exploiting themselves for profit.
Exactly. Absolutely no difference at all.
No.
And unfortunately, I just cannot get this image out of my head.
Oh, the hula hoop with the
Yes, like if you're that talented, just go ahead and email me or just send me a message on Twitter, something like that. If Twitter's still around by the time this actually airs, just let me know so I could just go ahead and subscribe to your OnlyFans. And do not say that you do this and I subscribe and you do not do this. I don't like to be lied to, people.
If you can hula hoop while simultaneously fucking yourself with a dildo, as a gay man, I still want to see that.
Oh my God.
You have a market right there because that's fucking talented.
Really talented. Like, who is producing that kind of content out here? You have the corner of the market. Like, everybody's wanting to see this.
It's hard enough to hula hoop. Never mind while getting fucked by it. Yeah.
Like, and butt plugs does not count. Let me go ahead and add that. Saying, "Oh, I have the butt plug in and I'm hula hooping." No, that does not count.
No, actual inserting and exerting.
Oh my God.
That would be hot.
Oh, fucking hot. Oh my God. Maybe one leg at first, and then that's a way to get the attraction. You build it with one leg and fucking yourself with it, and then eventually, you know what? I need to go get me a hula hoop. There we go.
Thinking about it now, when you have a hula hoop on, you're kind of moving your hips in a way that it actually does work if you put it on some sort of stick and you kind of sit on it.
My gosh, you can do it with a machine.
You could do it with a machine, yeah.
Oh my God.
I still want to see it. I still want to absolutely fucking see
it. Yes, hula hoop with the sex machine is going to be the episode title. There we go.
There we go. That's nice.
Right. Okay. So last topic before actually I think we are running out of time, so we're going to be quick on this.
Okay.
So this is related to the disclaimer that I started off at the beginning of the show. Having trust when engaging in drunk sex or any kind of intoxicated sexual experience. Why is that important?
So this goes back to why I don't agree with drunk sex, because when you are intoxicated, whether it's for the alcohol or the drug impairment or whatever, you cannot be in the right frame of mind to make consent approval. You just can't be a consensual person because you're not in the mind frame to give consent. If you can't drive a car when drunk, why you shouldn't be able to drive your body drunk, So I think for me, it's if someone comes to me talking about drunk sex, it's a no. It's a no-go. No. Now that said, if I was going to do it, it would be with my husband, who I've known for over a decade, and I trust him 100%. And I trust him implicitly to the point where I know that even though I may not be in the right state of mind, he's not going to do anything to hurt me or take advantage of me or take advantage of the situation. And not only that, but I also trust him enough to know that if I don't know when to stop, he would know when to stop, and you need that. And if you're doing one night stands or you're doing random hookups and you're shit-faced drunk, that person doesn't know you. That person doesn't know your signs. And, and honestly, even, with my husband, if we were going to do it, I would start very slowly. Like, start with just a little buzz, because we've never had drunk sex, and so we don't know how our bodies are going to be when we're shit faced, So I would say, start with just a little tiny buzz and do it that way, and work your way up and get a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you're, as pie-eyed as you want. But don't just jump into it, because you don't know your body, you don't know how your body's going to react. And your partner honestly doesn't know it either, So with someone you trust, slow it down, do it slowly, but you should never do it with someone you've just met.
And you know what? That's all that needs to be said. That is all that needs to be said. Like, I really do need people to be cognizant of the person that I just met does not know me. They don't know my likes. They don't know my dislikes. Of course, that's something that can and should be communicated. But whenever you are intoxicated, it does impair your decisions. It does make you a little bit more likely to do something that you wouldn't do while sober. Like if you have to take 3 shots in order to have sex with somebody, you probably shouldn't be having sex with that person. And even when it comes to marijuana, I will say the same thing. Like, yes, you're a lot more coherent than you may be if you're drunk, but still understand how the sexual experience is with this person while sober before you include any kind of drugs.
100%. Yeah.
So on that note, let's get into this Never Have I Ever segment. But instead of doing Never Have I Ever, I would like to do a Would You Rather.
Okay.
Oh, would you rather have a lover who can never orgasm or one that can never make you orgasm?
I am a pleaser. Like I said, I'm very soft dom. I'm all about pleasure. So I would much prefer myself not orgasming as long as my partner has as much joy and pleasure as they can get.
You know, I'm the same. I am the same. Like, I do enjoy mutual pleasure. Most definitely if it's like some casual kind of thing. But when it comes to anything long term or somebody that I've been intimate with in the past, I'm okay not busting a nut. I'm okay with not reaching to the point of having an orgasm, because one, I don't count the first nut because that little thing just comes whenever it needs to, and it's just like once that's done, you didn't do what needed to be done. You just got that one out the way, and I appreciate you for doing that. Now my body is warmed up for the real thing.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep on. But like I love it whenever I can provide pleasure to other people. When I can elongate their orgasm as long as I can, or even just being in control of that. Most definitely if it's like in terms of like masturbating somebody and they don't want to come yet. And I'm just like, but you're not in control here.
Yeah.
So because I'm in control of this, I'm the one with the decisions here. I got the power. But like those kind of things give me pleasure.
Yes.
So like if they don't make me come, it's all good.
Yeah.
You got what you needed, and I receive a good bit of pleasure from that.
There have been many nights where me and my husband have fooled around, and I wasn't really necessarily aroused, but I pleased him, which got me aroused. But you know, when he after he came, he's like, "Do you want me to help you?" I'm like, "No, I'm good."
Exactly. And that's it. Well, on that note, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience? Any tips, tricks, things like that?
I would say one thing I would say is sex is okay. Sex is normal. Everyone does it. I don't care who you are. Everyone does it. And we should stop shaming each other for things we like to do and the things we all do.
I agree with that message. Well, Wesley, thank you so much for sharing your time with me and coming on to the podcast. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, anytime. And for the listeners, thank you all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy, you are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.